Welcome to the 6 p.m. City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present with the exception of Councilmember Heyer and Vice Chair Lopez, who have asked to be excused. And Councilmember Nadolski is joining us remotely, so never mind. We'll see if we can get him back. First up, we have a Pledge of Allegiance, which Council Member Ritchie has agreed to lead us in.
Thank you. Please stand and offer a proper hand salute and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We would now ask that you join with us in a moment of silence. Thank you. First up is a recognizing our own Ogden City Planning Manager, Greg Montgomery, for 40 years of service to our community. And we have a recognition which Councilmember White has agreed to read.
I am lucky because Councilmember Heyer would have been here to do this, but I'm the lucky one tonight. Mm-hmm. So with that, the Ogden City Council and Mayor proudly recognize Greg Montgomery for providing invaluable contributions to the Ogden community. In his 40 years, I said 40, not 14, working in the planning division for Ogden City, Greg Montgomery has unequivocally changed Ogden for the better. He has had significant impact on the development and revitalization of Ogden and has played a pivotal role in shaping the city into what it is today. His knowledge, expertise, and passion have been an invaluable asset to not only the city of Ogden, but the community at large. During his tenure with Ogden City, Greg has been heavily involved in several major development projects and initiatives, including the Make Ogden Downtown Master Plan, 9 Rails Creative District, Ogden River Parkway, Municipal Gardens, Crossroads of the West, and if we listed them all, we wouldn't be out of here until later tonight. The preservation of Ogden's historic landmarks, various street name changes, and many, many more. Greg has also involved with the adoption and implementation of the General Plan, Bicycle Master Plan, and Recreation Master Plan. Greg will be retiring at the end of June after 4 decades of dedicated service. We are grateful for his commitment and loyalty to Ogden City. We wish him the best in all his future endeavors and are confident that his influence and his legacy he built will continue to live on. With that, I'd like to present this to Greg Montgomery as of today. You never get to come this far. Thank you.
Congratulations, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. None of these are on. No.
Get the oldest for last.
So, just for public comment, I'm a little nervous.
Right, okay.
Okay. Yeah, let's bring our family up. Grandma, come up into the picture.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Over this way a little bit.
Okay, so ideally, everyone be right here. Yeah. Nice. That's great. Okay, everybody look at here. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much.
There's the rules for your family. They want to take them now also.
Okay.
That way you don't have to carry them off when you leave.
Not some little ones, I think, would like them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to see you carry them.
40 years and all you do is get the loop.
Yep.
And a plaque.
And a plaque. Yep. Nope, I did that. It doesn't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Well, I know when I saw this on the agenda Thursday afternoon, I came up to Glenn and said, "What are you doing? Where does this come from?" I really do appreciate this. It means a lot. And, you know, as you read that number 40, I think, well, I probably had more than 40. Thinking of when I was a teenager, my father owned a typewriter shop, and one of the things I would do was come here to the city offices to pick up typewriters to be repaired. So as a teenager, I'd come into this building, go to the different offices and pick things up and take them around. And, you know, I just think of all the things that have happened in those 40 years since I've been with the city. And first of all, I just want to thank my family. My wife, this is really where I am on Tuesday and Wednesday nights. I am not somewhere else. I am here. And the life of my children, they've never known me doing anything else than Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Dad's at work and works at night, and appreciate that. I appreciate my family being here this day because they sacrificed to help me to be here and to feel comfortable to be here and doing my duties. I've reflected a little bit about 40 years, and I was looking and think, okay, we as a planning office have been in 5 different buildings in those 40 years. We have, I've been through 7 different mayors, 2 different forms of government. I've seen 25th Street when it was abandoned, and there's all vacant buildings other than 8. And one of them was our office, and the others were bars. And so I don't know which one is frequented more, but we saw a lot of things take place and change. My one daughter asked me, says, "What do you think is the biggest accomplishment that you've seen take place?" I said, you know, I really don't know what to say, because everything we do here in the city is a team effort. And it's not just one individual, it's everyone working together. And the things have been able to happen. I remember early on in trying to protect the foothills. When I started, they were all motorcycle paths, all up and down the foothills. There was no Mount Ogden golf course. There were no trails. And I always think and appreciate the opportunity to be part of the trails and getting those established. Jay did the river, I did the foothills, and I think we combined together in many different things, but appreciate those opportunities. And I think I've always tried to follow the motto I always tell when I take youth groups places: leave it better than you found it. And hopefully I've left the community better than when I first started here. And I've always appreciated that ability and opportunity to do it. Sometimes it takes a while. It takes some time. Sometimes it's 20 years before the idea actually takes place, but good ideas always happen and always will come forward. And I appreciate these opportunities and to serve with councils like you and with administration, even Mark. And appreciate those opportunities and those friends who are here from work. This is a great place to work. The camaraderie of all the different people who are truly friends here, working together to accomplish the same goal of making this a better community for those who live here now and also for the future. That what we have here is not what we've done ourselves. We build upon what others have done and just try to improve it and make it better as we go along. And thank you so much for this. I appreciate it. It's kind of bittersweet, but I think it's going to be more sweet. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Do you care if I make a comment before you?
Oh, yeah.
So, Greg, I'm just going to say I've really appreciated you and your patience with us and asking probably the most ridiculous questions, and you're just very patient. And when I first started on the council, I think we had a contraption that you had to write things on, and it had these lights, and half the time it would work, and half the time it wouldn't. And I'm proud of you for advancing into the new technology. But I think the most that I will miss is you're just quick to have funny comments. And you made one today that just made me laugh out loud on the train. And it was, yeah, you know, grandma sitting out there watering in a rocker, watering the lawn. And I just laughed out loud. And I'm going to miss those because you have those all the time. So thank you for all you've done for us, or for me, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's any other comments.
Oh yeah, I just want to say thanks also, Greg. I mean, was the newest member of the council not too long ago, and I have about 1 million more questions, and it's very repetitive with us and explaining everything. And also, I just don't know what's going to happen. I know I'm going to continue to say to people, well, have you talked to Greg Montgomery? I mean, that's literally when I get constituents asking me questions about planning or different things in the city, I always say, hey, have you talked to Greg yet? You know, and so it's going to be hard for me to figure out how to replace that. Even though I'm sure you'll have a great predecessor, yeah, it'll be really hard for me not to say that.
Sounds like now we'll have more time to talk to people. Yeah. Yeah.
We are looking for some people for the planning commission. That's true. Yeah.
I echo everything that's been said, Greg. I'm not Councilman Hire. Planning does not come easy for me. Zoning does not come easy for me. And I appreciate the way that you always took time to help us and make sure that we understood what you were presenting and also knew what was being presented. So I appreciate the way you did it. And I look back at, you know, we deal with a lot of people in the community and government is hard sometimes. Some people want something that just can't happen. And even those people always say that Greg Montgomery has been wonderful to work with. And that seems to be a recurring theme all the time is people would come here, whether their project moved forward smoothly or we had to do some tweaks and make some improvements or make some changes. I think if we went through the public records, we'd see that numerous times that the statement Greg Montgomery has been wonderful to work with is a recurring theme. And so I appreciate not only what you did for us, but for all those in our community and those trying to come to our community. So thank you.
Greg, I am the new guy, and so I don't know what else I could really add to what's been said already other than just, you know, we appreciate you so much for everything you've done. And 40 years, that's a remarkable, you had to have been just starting. My parents just moved out of a home they built 38 years ago, so I'm sure that was maybe one of your first projects. But anyway, thank you.
Mark?
Thanks. I've known Greg a long time, and we actually have traveled some roads together because we're the same age. I want his family to know this is the first time we've seen him on Tuesday night for about 5 years. Greg Montgomery is as honorable and council meeting as he is everywhere else that he works. I think his knowledge is amazing, but his kindness and his wanting to help people is probably a lost art in this day and age. He's been a dear friend of mine. We've teased and laughed and had fun for a long time, and I'm going to miss that because he truly is an honorable, good public servant that has done a lot of good here. So, Greg, thank you. We will miss you a lot. But I take courage about there is an opportunity to retire someday and be with your family on Tuesday night. I'm looking forward to that. And we taught Greg how to use his cell phone because we could never get a hold of him. Council taught you other technology, but we taught you the cell phone. And Jay's been spreading the number around so that people will keep calling you.
I can't remember what it's even called, but yeah, when I first got on the council, Greg would bring those clear papers and lay them on the overhead projector, and it would, yeah.
And it took 2 years to teach him how to do that.
Exactly. So Yep. You're ready for retirement now. Look at all you've learned.
Give me a chalkboard, I can do
Yep, exactly.
No, he writes on the walls. He did that in my office once.
Wow.
Some things don't get forgotten, do they?
Yep. Again, thank you. Okay, before we move on, just to make a note, I believe Chair Nadolski has rejoined us, correct? Great. Welcome, Chair Nadolski. Next on the agenda is common consent for the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget, setting the public hearings for July 12th and August 2nd, 2022.
What do I call you? I don't know what to call you.
Acting?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Acting chair. Hey, over there. Sorry. I apologize. I'd like to propose that we approve the common consent setting the public hearings for the fiscal year 2022 to 23 budget.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt the items listed under common consent by Councilmember Chaburka and a second by Councilmember White. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. And just a note, the council will be considering a property tax increase with the adoption of the final budget on August 5th. We invite residents to attend the public hearing scheduled for July 12th and August 2nd. Yep,
August 2nd.
July 12th and August 2nd, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, it was on August 5th on here too. Sorry. Scheduled for July 12th and August 2nd to comment on the proposal. Residents may also submit comments by leaving a voice message at 801-629-8158, by submitting comments at ogdencity.com/public input. Residents may email us at citycouncil@ogdencity.com or by contacting council members directly, and council member contact information can be found on the ogdencity.com website. So there are various ways for residents to get in touch and leave their comments or concerns for us in the weeks leading up to the adoption of the budget. With that, we will move into our public hearings, and before we do that, I would entertain a motion to suspend the council's rules of procedure to limit comment time to 2 minutes.
Acting Chair, I move that we suspend the rules for procedure for the meeting of June 21st, 2022, and limit comments during all public hearings and the public comment period for 2 minutes.
Can I amend that so that item C, we allow that to be 4 minutes?
For item 5C?
Yes.
Is that
Yes,
5C?
yes.
5C, okay. Yeah, 5C, sure enough.
I'll second.
Great, thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember White to change the rules of procedure to limit the public hearing time from 2 minutes to from 3 minutes to 2 minutes, with the exception of those items listed under 5C, and we will allow those to be 4 minutes. This is a second by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, that passes.
The chair want to?
I haven't heard anything. Okay, so first up, so we have multiple items, multiple public hearings here. So we'll accept the presentations, and then we'll have one public hearing for each of these items. So first up, we have the fiscal year 2022 annual action plan, amendment number 3, and I believe we have Ward Ogden here tonight. Great.
Members of the council, good to be here tonight. We're here to discuss an amendment to our annual action plan. And for the public's note, information, an annual action plan is a plan for the use of the federal funds which come to Ogden City for community and economic development. The action tonight is to update the HUD budget, which is Housing and Urban Development budget that comes to the city for fiscal year 22, and to adopt what's called the Home ARP allocation plan, and we'll describe that in a few minutes. The budget, the current budget for the action plan is $8.6 million. The city has received a grant, a special grant from HUD in the amount of $1,652,923. And so with the addition of that, our annual action plan budget will be $10.3 million. The Home ARP is a program which has come through the American Rescue Plan, which took effect in March of 21. It's part of that $1.9 trillion relief package due to the pandemic. $5 billion of that went through the home entitlement program, and Ogden City is an entitlement community for the home dollars. They've created a program called Home ARP, which is American Rescue Plan, to address homelessness, assistance, and supportive services. And the Ogden's allocation of 1.6 is broken out into program delivery of 1.4, and then there's an administrative amount of 15%, $247,000. The activities that are eligible for that Home ARP money are administration and planning, Home ARP, a special variety of rental housing, labeled Home ARP housing, tenant-based rental assistance, which is a kind of a rental subsidy, and supportive services and the non-congregate shelter housing. And these activities need to benefit qualifying populations. Those populations, there's a few categories. The first category is homeless. Those that lack a fixed nighttime residence, they're going to imminently lose their nighttime residence, and unaccompanied youth. Those at risk of homelessness, and there's a large sort of description of at risk, they must be very low income, lack resources and network to keep them from being on the street, and then they need to meet one of 7 tests for tenuous housing, which basically means that they're in kind of a tenuous situation, living in different types of housing which are not stable or determined to be stable by definition. The other 2 categories are fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence or human trafficking, stalking, and those types of things. And then the funds may also be used to provide services to families that require services or housing to prevent homelessness and that are at greatest risk of housing instability. Veterans and families that include a veteran are also eligible, as long as they meet another one of those criteria. The plan, there's a special procedure that we're asked to go through to devise the plan for the use of the funds, and that involved consultation with a number of providers in the community. So we consulted with the local Homeless Coordinating Council, homeless and domestic violence service providers, veterans groups, public housing agencies, and agencies serving these qualifying populations, fair housing, civil rights, and disability agencies. The public participation process also included outreach to the public. We visited with the local Homeless Coordinating Council, Ogden Housing Resident Advisory Committee, the Coalition of Resources, the Diversity Commission. We met with our Citizen Advisory Committee, had a work session with the City Council in April, and then held a public comment period. It lasted for a month and went from mid-April to mid-May. And then this hearing is the final step in that public participation process. Again, this is part of the presentation that we did with the council in April, and it's for the public's benefit, and to remind the council that qualifying populations and the size of the composition of those populations are required to be in the plan. We had supposed to analyze the data and come up with gaps in services and priority needs and those types of things. The point in time count is, the most recent was done in 21, and everyone knows that it's not extremely accurate, but it's the best that they can come up with. And so the statistics that you see there have to do with the point in time count, showing the number of sheltered, 281 sheltered, 91 unsheltered. On that day, 78% of the sheltered beds were utilized. 56% of the transitional housing beds were utilized, and all of the rapid rehousing units were utilized. Of the population, 63% were adults, 33 were households including children, and 7% unaccompanied children, and 20% were fleeing domestic violence, 6% were veterans. Another category was at risk of homelessness, and this comes from data that is provided to us by HUD, and they have their own way of handing us information, which showed that just over 3,000 households were very low income and that were rent burdened, meaning paying over 30% of their income towards rent. And 1,800 were low income, meaning 50% of the area median, paying more than 30% of their income towards rent. So this shows relative need. Throughout the process, it became clear through the consultation and the review of the data that the unmet needs and gaps included this list: permanent supportive housing, homeless prevention, supportive services, deeply affordable housing, case management, rental assistance, and help the working poor stay in their units so that they don't become homeless, and then income growth of the households. The proposed uses of the Home ARP funds are 1/3 towards supportive services and 2/3 towards rental, tenant-based rental assistance. And then there's again, the 15% administrative money that will be used to run the program. Again, the focus is to assist households at risk of homelessness by paying a portion of rent and utilities coupled with supportive services aimed at stabilizing and increasing household income. We estimate that approximately 75 households will be assisted. And the agency, Ogden City, would be the granting agency, and a sub-grantee we will select through an RFP process. That is the proposal for the plan. I'm sorry. Maybe I should leave something up for comments or questions
I have a question.
at this point.
Go ahead.
I was wondering, Ward, we had some comments, and I'm also curious about this as well, about, excuse me, how there was some challenges for the state level program that was trying to provide rental assistance. So how do you foresee this being a little bit different than that plan?
That's a good question. The state had some money. It didn't come through the Home ARP,
Right.
obviously. It came through another COVID-related thing, and those were specifically, those monies that came from the state were specifically tied to households that were directly impacted by the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there was difficulty in actually qualifying people based on their story and their background of how they became, in need. So in talking with ALCAP, who was administering and is now doing referrals, that was basically the answer that they gave, that they tried very hard to, and gave out a lot of money, but there were a number of families that didn't qualify because they couldn't tightly link them to the pandemic as their cause.
So then you would, the way I'm understanding it, you would grant an agency to facilitate the program, so we wouldn't be running the program ourselves.
We'll have a role in monitoring and funding and approving funding. So yes, someone else will be doing the handwork on it.
I had a question on the supportive services. Those are, the city doesn't provide those specific services,
Right.
so we're working with other organizations. Has that already been identified, which organizations, or is that?
Right, that's an RFP process that we'll put together. After we get this adopted, we'll put that together. So no, we won't be offering those. The supportive service list is I jotted them down. It's big.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of things that can be done. Everything from childcare, education, employment assistance, food, housing search, legal services, life skills, mental health, outpatient health services, outreach, substance abuse, transportation, case management, mediation, credit repair, financial assistance, rental assistance can even come through this as well. So it can be very helpful. Another one of the elements that that is a differentiating factor for this, that is actually a great advantage, is that, as we know, our rents have increased quite a bit, and the housing vouchers that are now available through the housing authorities have a cap on those rents. That's based on what HUD tells them they can charge or that they can accept. This program allows that we use the market, the local market, so people can choose housing in the local market based on what's comparable versus what HUD tells them, which tends to be sometimes significantly lower. So we're going to be able to help households that otherwise couldn't get assistance through housing vouchers.
I have
Go ahead.
two. One's probably a quick question. The other one is, well, maybe they both are. The first one, is there a timing to use these dollars?
Yes, it's 2030.
By 2030?
Yes.
And then, oh, that's a long time for that amount of money. And then the second question is are there performance metrics that are being placed on us, or will that be part of the RFP process?
The performance metrics based on HUD are simply that the money goes out according to their guideline, and that we have the money spent by the end of 2030.
Just based on
September
that list that
2030.
you were talking about, it would be really of benefit to see if that money was performed well, or well
Useful.
spent.
And that's kind of our job. As we'll have to do annual reporting to HUD. So obviously that's part of the reporting, and that would come through our CAPER as well. So you'll see all of that
Great.
come through. And again, this is the plan. The plan can be amended. I mean, it could theoretically be amended if we chose it. The budgeting wasn't the way that we wanted to balance that, or something like that. But it's, again, we're talking about a program that was cobbled together basically by HUD. A bunch of money was handed to them, and they said, what's the best way of putting this money out? And it's fairly complicated. So it's going to take a little while to digest the regulations and get the RFP out and get it operating. So anything else?
Okay,
Thank you.
saying no more, thank you. Okay, our next presenter. All right. It's Justin. Yep. We've got Justin here tonight to talk about make sure I've got it, the fiscal year 2022 budget amendment, annual action plan number
Thank
3,
you.
right?
Thank you, Acting Chair. So along with the annual action plan, I don't know if you have that this morning.
Brandon, you emailed it to us, so, okay.
While that's being pulled up, so along with the amendment to the annual action plan, there's also a proposed ordinance to amend the budget that goes along with this. A lot of times when we amend the annual action plan, there's a need to amend the budget with it as well. And so once that's pulled up, I can go over what those changes are to recognize these monies coming in from the ARP program and what those changes will look like.
That doesn't mean that it was the one.
Not that one.
Not that one?
No.
Oh, then that's the wrong one.
That's okay. It was we discussed this a few weeks ago in work session, but the just as Ward described, so we'll be recognizing money into the home ARP allocation of just over 1.4 million. And then also recognizing money under administration. And all these monies are going to be recognized within the major grants funds. And so unless there's any questions on the actual budget allocation, I believe it was in the packet which programs are being adjusted within there. But there's some truing up as was discussed also, along with increasing or adding the funds for the ARP program. There's a reduction to a couple other programs, moving those funds over to the administration program. So there it is. So here's those changes right there. So you can see the net change is that 1.6 million. We'll be adding the funding under the ARP allocation, and then the rest will be going under the administration with some reduction to a couple other programs. But the net increase to the budget is just over 1.6 million. So any questions with those changes? Okay. Thank you.
I don't think so. Thank you, Justin. Okay, and third would be the business recovery program guideline amendments, and we have Sarah Meese here from Business Development.
All right, good evening. So we're proposing two minor changes to the Business Recovery Fund. This program uses CDBG CV, which is coronavirus-specific funding, to provide loans to Ogden businesses to help them prevent, prepare for, and respond to COVID-19 and its economic impacts. The Business Recovery Fund, or BRF, program guidelines were adopted in December 2021. So currently our BRF program guideline actually supports two different HUD national objectives. The first is job creation and retention, and the second is limited clientele, which is through assistance to low mod income microenterprise owners. So per HUD, microenterprise assistance should actually be provided through a separate program. So we're just proposing to split the Business Recovery Fund into two separate programs. One will be for job creation and retention, and then we'll have a second program for the limited clientele national objective, again, through assistance to low and moderate income microenterprise owners. The second change we're proposing is just a clarification that the term of loan payments in the BRF program is up to a maximum of 10 years. And that's consistent with our small business and microenterprise loan program guidelines. So apart from those two minor changes, the BRF program guidelines will remain the same as were adopted in late 2021. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Sarah?
All right,
Great,
thank you.
thanks so much. Okay. Now we have the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget amendments. I believe we have, right?
Wait,
Oh, sorry.
public hearing. Yeah.
Okay, so now we're ready for the public hearing on those three items. If anyone would like to come forward and discuss any of these three items, you now have 2 minutes. Seeing no movement in the chambers, I see one hand raised online. We can go ahead and start there. 2 minutes. Yep.
Brandon, keep up.
I'm guessing it's, from what I can read, Angel Castillo. Perfect. Okay. Soon as Brandon gets that ready, Angel, you are perfect. Welcome, Angel.
Excellent. Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I apologize for the printer noise in the background. I am printing off a proposal And I very much appreciate the fact that we are still digital and hybrid so that I can work and participate at the same time. My main comment is for the housing HUD amendment. I basically highly encourage you to approve it. However, I'd like you to put some guardrails on it. There is a capacity issue at both the city and with the nonprofits that are going to be participating in these grants. I'd also like to lift up Councilmember White's comment about performance metrics. The packet for this is 122 pages, and on those pages, we have lots of things that we're going to do. We're going to strive for this. We want to do this with no actual metrics associated with them. How many are we goaling for? What are we going to do to get there? What's the plan to execute this? And if you look at the comments that the agencies made, while they all said that they would like additional rental assistance to go to market rates, it is a capacity issue. They don't have enough case managers. If you look through that, you'll see the word case manager, case management mentioned over 6 times. Capacity is a problem. We have to make sure that we're going to put guardrails on this money. It should be spent, and I agree with how it's being spent, but there has to be performance metrics. So please, put some guardrails on it so that there's actual accountability so that we can help people. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't see any others.
See no other movement or online, I'd make a motion to close the public hearing on this issue.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Ritchie to close the public hearing on these items, and a second by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Any opposed? That passes. And either any further comments or discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I just have a comment, and as we put that RFP out, I would just like to see if we could even include some sort, like a number of children in a child care, increase or whatever. I mean, I would just love to see something like that as we put that RFP out. And I know it won't come, so. With that, I will make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2022-9, the fiscal year 2022 annual action plan amendment number
Second.
3.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember White to adopt proposed resolution 2022-9 and a second by Councilmember Ritchie. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Sorry, Acting Chair Blair.
Thought I was
Councilmember
last.
Chaburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
That passes. Thank you.
Make a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2022-30, the fiscal budget amendment for 2022 annual action plan amendment 3.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2022-30 by Councilmember Ritchie and a second by Councilmember White. This too is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Acting Chair Blair.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
That passes. Thank you.
Okay, I will propose that we adopt proposed resolution 2022-10, the Business Recovery Program Guideline Amendments.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Chaburka to adopt proposed resolution 2022-10 and a second by Councilmember White. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Acting Chair Blair.
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski,
Aye.
Thank you. That passes.
Do we need to have a presentation for the fiscal year? Should that be, or is that just another item?
I think that's another item, right? Yeah. So now we are on to the fiscal year 2023 annual action plan, and we have Ward Ogden here tonight.
Council members, we just amended the fiscal year 22 plan. The requirement for the home ARP funds was that the HUD mandated that amendment come through the 22 year. So that was when it was supposed to. Even if we were to adopt this in future years, we'd still amend our 22 plan because that's when the funds came. So just so you know why that was a 22 amendment. Our annual action plan for 2023 is the discussion point today. Just for the public's information, and the council reminder, the annual action plan is the implementation plan of a 5-year consolidated plan, which we adopted a few years ago. The consolidated plan is a mechanism that we put together to strategically plan for and outline programs for the administration and expenditure of those federal dollars that come to us through the block grant and the home program. We need to amend that if we significantly modify the programs that are outlined in the consolidated plan. So the annual action plans are basically the annual program to carry out those programs that were outlined in the 5-year plan. It's an application to HUD for entitlement status, and once it's approved, we are then entitled to receive Community Development Block Grant and home funds. And that's, there's a formula that HUD uses to determine how much we get. So this is our action plan for the year beginning July 1 of 22 through June 30th of 23. It's the 3rd year implementation of our consolidated plan. Details the budget for the year and the programs and projects that the city intends to carry out and the goals for those funds. Due to the delay in Congress passing the federal budget, normally we get our numbers in the spring, but we didn't get our number till May 13th, and so that's delayed where we normally hold this hearing in early May, and now it's a little over a month later. So we normally have our funds available to use beginning of July, and so we're set back a month, but we'll be fine. We'll briefly talk about the entitlement grants. The block grant has been increased by 1% over last year. The block grant can be used for housing, or is used for housing rehab, public improvements, economic development, microenterprise assistance, the BIC, Business Information Center, public services. Slum and blight alleviation is eligible and addressing urgent needs. 70% of the money that we spend needs to address benefit to low and moderate income persons, and the other 30 up to 30% can be used to alleviate slum and blight or address urgent needs. And we have 20% that's used for admin. We had a special grant, again, through the pandemic relief funds called CDBG CV, and that's a one-time grant of $947,000, and we're carrying over from last year $852,000. It's being used for economic development and microenterprise assistance. And again, those have to be tightly targeted to pandemic-related issues. The home entitlement went up by 0.5%, so it's pretty flat, just a few $1,000s more. It has to meet, has to benefit households with housing. So the home is only housing. And housing rehab, new housing, and down payment assistance are the programs that are used for that. Just to briefly show where the amounts of the HUD funding that we have. We have the $1 million block grant entitlement, the $458,000 home entitlement, and then it shows the carryover amounts and the amounts that we receive through program income, through loan repayments and home sales. So our block grant budget is $3 million, our CV budget $852,000, the home budget is $1.5 million, and we just under $5.5 million for a total on the HUD funding for this coming year. I don't think that went through. There we go. So the programs that are funded with these funds are the Quality Neighborhoods, $2.6 million, a combination of block grant and home, and it shows the projects, 5 homes rehabbed and another home constructed, and a project through a special type of nonprofit every other year. Target area public improvements, we have a project coming up this year, putting $500,000 into that. The Own and Ogden program, which has been in place since 1988, and funding that with the home, and then emergency home repair and administration. So that's the funds that come through the Community Development Division. The funds coming through the Business Development Division are for the Business Information Center, $55,000, Special Economic Development Projects and Microenterprise Loan, and the Business Loan Program, Small Business Loan Program through the block grant. And then again, this is the one-time money from the CDBG CV, which is funding the Business Recovery Fund. And there's a small amount available for administration. And that's pretty much the presentation for the annual action plan. Again, these programs and projects are outlined in the 5-year plan, and we carry those forward each year with new funding and goals. And it's interesting to see how much we are carrying over and how much we're able to spend that money, and it's doing pretty well. So $5.5 million of federal funds. We've gone through a public process on this as well, meeting with our Citizen Advisory Committee, which recommended the passage of the resolution, a public comment period in April through May, and this public hearing today. So we anticipate sending the grant request to HUD as early as tomorrow, if adopted. And then the new funds would be available hopefully within 45 days after submission. So open for questions.
Any questions for Ward? Great,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. This is also a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and take public input on this item. Seeing no movement in the chambers, we can move to our online participants. Looks like we have Angel Castillo. Welcome, Angel. Go ahead, the time is yours.
Thank you. Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. The Quality Neighborhoods Grant program isn't functioning as it should. There's much better traction with less investment for the Own and Ogden program, which is amazing. And the BIC, if you support local businesses and grow those businesses pay taxes. If you look at how many builds are actually happening, with year 1 as a projection of 7 and the rest of the years is year 5 for an aggregate of 27 homes, that's not a lot of lift. If you increased the amount that you would give people for down payments, which is the largest barrier for home entry for owning a home, then you could do more with getting people into homes. And again, I'm going to hearken back to the previous presentation about metrics. In all of the documents that go with this particular program, with the con plan, it's very, we want to, we'd like to, we goal to, rather than actual metrics. How many homes are you going to build? How many people are you going to assist with down payment. What does that look like? What was it last year? How can you improve that? What are the barriers from preventing people about knowing your program? The other thing that just completely shocks me is there is no specific marketing person designated to do these things. It's always, oh, we're going to put this ad up. Oh, we'll make that Facebook post. You can't possibly expect to reach everyone to tell them about the amazing programs that we do have if you're not committing to a line item budget to have that person push that information out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comment?
Acting Chair, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Ritchie and a second by Councilmember Chaburka to close the public hearing on this item. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes. And I would entertain a motion or, well, if there's no further comment or discussion, I would entertain a motion on this item.
I would make a motion to adopt proposed resolution 2022-11, the fiscal year 2023 annual action plan.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Ritchie to adopt proposed resolution 2022-11 and a second by Councilmember White. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Acting Chair Blair,
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye.
That passes. Thank you. Next up is item C, the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget amendments. And we have Lisa Stout here to we have Lisa Stout here to watch Justin present.
You get me for the first one, and then
Yeah.
Lisa will do the other two. So,
Perfect.
thank you, Acting Chair Blair. So the first item under that I'll be reviewing is the water conservation budget appropriation for your consideration tonight. The budget amendment that's before you tonight is to appropriate fund balance in the general fund that will be transferred out of the general fund, and then it will be received in the CIP fund. And these funds will be used for the water conservation program that's been discussed. It was discussed today in work session, and it's been discussed in prior meetings as well. So the total appropriation is to recognize those two, the 200,000, the 100,000 in the general fund, and then 200,000 in the CIP fund to begin funding this program. The next steps in this program, as was discussed today in work session, were the program guidelines. So what this does is it allows us to have some funding in place. So once those guidelines are in place, we'll have a budget already there. Additionally, we have an agreement with Weber Basin where they agreed to fund up to $100,000 as well. Included in the fiscal year 2023 budget is that $100,000. So as the program will run through the city, and then we'll be able to request reimbursement from Weber Basin for up to $100,000. Also, along with that, in the budget for next year is an additional $400,000. So that will put the total program initially, once with this budget and with the fiscal year 2023 budget, at $600,000. So with that, is there any questions?
So the 100,000 that we're transferring is in addition to this, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So there'll be the 100,000 that would be appropriated now, and then with the adoption of the budget in August, there'll be an additional 500,000 added to that, bringing it to 600,000.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Now we'll welcome Lisa.
Thank you, council members, acting chair. Ben does a great job Brandon does a great job of keeping us on track. So I don't think I've ever seen him lose a presentation, and we have a lot of them. So thank you to him.
First time for everything.
The budget action that we're asking you to consider tonight is to appropriate money out of the general fund to transfer to the redevelopment agency. The city received a grant from the state of Utah, the Governor's Office of Economic Development, in the amount of $2.5 million. This grant was awarded to the city to be used on an ARPA project because the city is participating in the WonderBlock development. The criteria was the housing, the commercial, the grocery for the award. So although the city is getting the $2.5 million, because we're participating in WonderBlock, we cannot use it at WonderBlock because WonderBlock will not qualify as an ARPA project. So the administration, we're requesting that the council appropriate $2.5 million out of the city general fund to be transferred to the redevelopment agency. In fiscal year 23, part of the ARPA program that is proposed is to claim a lost revenue allocation of $9.5 million that will go back into the general fund. So in essence, we are using that money to fund this WonderBlock development. It disconnects the requirements from ARPA because of the lost revenue allocation. However, we are getting the money from the state because we are participating in the WonderBlock. In the past, we have funded approximately just over $6.6 million in the form of debt and transfers from the general fund. Those funds were used to purchase the property at WonderBlock, to repay some debt, so that kind of grosses up the revenue and then the expense when debt is repaid, to do the demo work, and then for pre-development costs. The additional $2.5 million that we're asking the city council to appropriate would also go towards pre-development expense. This is based on the land transfer and development agreement with JF Capital, where the city will cover up to $4.5 million in pre-development work. Any questions? Thank you.
Member Blair, I have
Thanks.
a question.
Yes, please.
I'm just curious, because we qualify for these funds because of this project, what would happen at the state level if we did not approve this tonight?
If we did not approve the WonderBlock development or participate in any way, I would assume that we would be required to repay these. Doesn't give us a deadline for when we participate in the WonderBlock development or necessarily what that looks like, other than the number of housing units and that it involves commercial and grocery development.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Did she cover the year-end adjustments also? Okay. Yes, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Is that better?
You're
So now we'll.
competing with their band.
Yep. Now we'll go over the year-end adjustments. Thank you.
And I'm so short. Someone has offered me a step stool before, but I'll lower the microphone. The year-end budget adjustment traditionally has been mostly to clean up or just housekeeping for accounting purposes. Some of the city's funds. The majority of this is for cleanup. However, there are some items the City Council should consider. The first action included in this budget appropriation is to take the $239 remaining in the City Council Strategic Planning Fund and allocate it to specific purposes. Of that $239, $100,000 would be turned back to the fund. It hasn't been allocated to a purpose yet. $15,000 would be for Ballet Folkloria. $64,000 would be go towards the renewable energy program. $30,000 towards design of a splash pad, and then $30,000 towards traffic control in the city's infrastructure. And those are both CIP funds. Additionally, we're asking the city to allocate another $80,000 in transient room tax. This is based on actual revenue received to date and what we're estimating that we'll get for the final month of distribution. It's an issue if we don't increase this budget because we pay the CVB a percentage. So to keep in line with our budget allocation, we need to increase the revenue so that we can increase that contract line item. And we're asking for $44,000 increase to that contract line item. The remainder would go back to fund balance. Additionally, we're asking for several things in the CIP fund. We're asking for the City Council to recognize a transfer in from the Medical Service Fund of $250,000, along with the reallocation of the contingency fund, which currently has $150,000 in it, to the Public Services building, the bays over where the fire department puts their trucks are having issues and they need to be replaced. The estimate on the replacement, the complete replacement of those very large bay doors is $400,000. We're also asking the council to recognize the transfer in of the strategic planning funds of $30,000 for the splash pad design and the $30,000 for traffic control and infrastructure. And then we're asking several ramp awards that were received in fiscal year 22 to be appropriated. In fiscal year 22, in the adopted budget, the City Council appropriated matches for each of these ramp awards. The ramp award was made in March, and we're asking council to simply recognize the ramp grant at this time. Additionally, we're asking that the city recognize $400,000 in grant match, $200,000 from Weber County and $200,000 from the Trails Network. This would go towards a $3.4 million grant for the Ogden Canyon Trail, right at the mouth of the trail. And then the city will also contribute $200,000 towards this grant. So the total spend would be $3 million. The city would use PY002, which is the Centennial Trails Fund, to make their match portion. And then we're asking the city to recognize the revenue this year from Dino Park. The amount is $37,000. That's an annual contribution made from Dino Park to the city. They run Dino Park on behalf of the city. Those funds will be used for trail maintenance and improvements. And then we're asking the city to recognize funds awarded through RAMP for BRT improvement, as well as allocation of public funds to the BRT art project. So these are the glass at each of the bus stops. The council adopted an ordinance back in December to move funds out of the arts fund to this program. This is simply some housekeeping to catch the accounting up with that ordinance. And then finally, in the CIP fund, we're asking for the council to move funds out of the planning fund. These were set aside last year, approximately about this time, for the art plaza, the artwork at the corner plaza. There were $116,000 in city funds, $30,000 out of the art funds, and then due to cost increases and design changes, we're asking to move $145,000 from the Ogden Avenue project to the corner art plaza. The Ogden Avenue art project or plaza is part of the art plaza that the city just completed, and the Nine Rails district. Those three projects, the corner, the Nine Rails, and the art plaza, kind of all relate together. So it would be going into the same area. It's just being moved from one CIP to another. I'm almost done. We're also asking the council to recognize an additional $31,000 in golf course revenue. Golf course revenue projections are estimated to exceed their budget, by approximately $60,000 in fiscal year 22, the last time I looked, which was a few weeks ago. We're asking to appropriate $31,000 of that so that golf can buy 2 new utility vehicles to help them manage the golf courses. They would spend approximately $15,500 on each vehicle, so there would be one for El Monte and one for Mount Ogden. In the Medical Services Fund, the appropriation would not change. We're simply asking Council to take the amount estimated to return to fund balance to transfer to the CIP fund for the bay doors at the Public Safety Building. And then Fleet and Facility sold some assets this year in the amount of $225,000. We're asking those funds to be reappropriated into the fleet replacement program. Additionally, when fleet does work for other city organizations, they charge them. And so we estimate what those charges will be at the beginning of the year. This additional $200,000 we're asking Council to appropriate as a cleanup to match the total revenue to what was actually collected, as well as in the IT fund, the $800,000. Same review. Those are internal service funds, so their primary customers are other city services and funds, and we estimate what we'll have in charges at the beginning of the year. $750,000 is what we estimated. We're asking to appropriate an additional $800,000. And finally, the last 2 funds, risk management, same issue. When we have increased wages for police and employees during the year, we neglected to increase the revenue received in the risk management fund and the cost of workers' compensation. So we're asking for an additional increase of $500,000 to recognize that revenue and expense. And then we're asking for a couple of grants to be appropriated. The first one is $122,000. This is a mental wellness grant from the Health and Human Services Department. It's for first responders and to help with mental wellness for first responders. And then we're also asking for a $30,000 grant appropriation from the Utah Department of Arts and Museums for operational expenses. The total appropriation is just under $3.7 million. We're asking Council to vote to appropriate these funds tonight. Any questions?
Nope. Great.
Okay, thank
Thanks,
you.
Lisa. Okay, we'll now have the public hearing on these items. Again, seeing no movement in the chambers, we'll go ahead and take comments from those participating online.
It's 4 minutes.
4. This one's. No, these all are, right?
Oh, it was 4 minutes.
Anything under C. Yeah. Yeah, this is 4. Okay, first up, again, I believe we have Angel Castillo. Brandon will get you set up, and welcome, Angel.
Thank you. Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I wanted to just point out something about the ARP funding for the WonderBlock. The funding that we're receiving is specifically for the WonderBlock because it contains housing. It's a new development and it shows financial impact. And what we're doing is switching money around. We're accepting it for that, even though it doesn't qualify for that, but it falls under Section 603 of the ARP Treasury Final Interim Rule, meaning the governor has money that the governor may designate to projects that are important to him. And housing is important to him, as it should be, and it should be for all of us. So I just want to point out that what y'all are doing with this, accepting ARP money and then moving it around to somewhere else, and so that you can actually use it and make sure you're meeting the guidelines, is exactly what I asked everybody to do for applying for ARP funding for the Marshall White Center. Because there are two different pots here. There's the pot that the state legislature gave specifically for Ogden, specifically for Weber County. And then there is the discretionary ARP funding that was available from the state. And if y'all had done this early enough in the process with all of the proven projects that qualified similar to the Marshall White Center, we wouldn't be where we are right now with having to figure out where we're going to pull the money and whether or not we're going to bond. So I just want to make you aware of you're doing exactly what you were told couldn't be done for a different project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up online we have, does that say Heath? Okay, Heath Sato. Brandon will get you ready, and welcome, Heath.
Hi there, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. I am glad this project's happening, but I do just want to remind everyone that it can't be changed now. But all of this money that got dumped in this site, all this pre-work by the city and holding on to property for ages to find the right developer to do these projects. This WonderBlock, Brown Ice Cream Building, Rite Aid, none of those were done through any kind of a transparent RFP process, which even though you don't have to do that, I think we are missing opportunities when we are dumping that much money as the city and pulling that much money, even if it's federal money, still our tax dollars, go into these things. I believe the process needs to be changed to stop allowing these type of projects to happen without any sort of RFP project. We have one developer doing the two biggest developments in our city, and they're getting huge benefits from the city to do those projects. And I know some of that enticement is needed, but the fact that it's just going to the same developer twice in a row with no open process of how to hand out those projects, I think is just, I won't make any accusations, but it's not a healthy way to run this. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no more comments online or in the chambers.
I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing on these three items.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Ritchie and a second by Councilmember Chaburka to close the public hearing on these three items. This is a voice vote.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes.
Chair, I'd like to, were you going to say something else? I'd like to propose that we adopt proposed ordinance 2022-31 for the Water Conservation Program.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2022-31 by Councilmember Chaburka and a second by Councilmember Ritchie. This is a roll call vote.
Acting Chair Blair,
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye.
Thank you. That passes. Next is the WonderBlock. Go
I
ahead.
would like to propose we adopt proposed ordinance 2022-32, amending the budget for fiscal year on the WonderBlock project.
I second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Ritchie to adopt proposed ordinance 2022-32 and a second by Councilmember White to adopt, and a second by Councilmember White. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Acting Chair Blair,
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye.
Thank you. That passes. And next up is the year-end adjustments.
I propose that we adopt proposed ordinance 2022-33 for the year-end adjustments.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2022-33 by Councilmember White and a second by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Acting Chair Blair,
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Chair Nadolski,
Aye.
Thank you. That passes. Next up, we have the enterprise fund transfer, and tonight we have Glenn Symes, Deputy Director from the City Council, here to present.
All right, thank you very much. As you mentioned on the agenda, this is a public hearing for the enterprise fund transfers. This is kind of a unique item that you get to deal with every year. It's part of the budget, but the public hearing and this presentation are separate and apart from the budget. But we'll get into a little bit more detail here in a minute. So just by way of some background, anytime that the city proposes to make a transfer from an enterprise fund to the general fund for a purpose that's not directly related to the operation of that fund, it requires notification of the users of that enterprise fund. And enterprise funds in Ogden are accounted for separately and are intended to support themselves through user fees or charges for services. In this case, it would be utility rates, it could be green fees or anything else where a charge for service is meant to support that enterprise fund. And for this particular item, the water utility, the sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and refuse utilities are enterprise funds, and that is those are the funds from which this transfer is proposed. So to give a little background on the transfers and why the city is proposing to do this, other utilities like Dominion and Rocky Mountain Power, they do in fact pay the city, or the city receives funding revenue from a franchise tax and property tax from these other utilities. And as I mentioned, these enterprise funds or these utilities are meant to operate as though they were separate utilities like these other utilities. And so the transfer of the 6% for franchise and 6% for property tax, this is meant to be our collection of those two revenue sources that we would get from, we would get as though they were separate utilities. So the maximum proposed transfer that's included in your budget is about $6 million. And I say the maximum, the actual amount may be less, but that's the maximum amount that is authorized in the budget and with this notice. And really the single biggest question we get, and you all got a question about that today, is if this transfer isn't made from these utility funds, would utility rates go down? What would happen if this money weren't transferred? And the short answer to whether utility rates would go down is yes. The longer answer is yes, but. And as you see, that $6 million transfer that comes from these enterprise funds to the general fund, in order for the city to remain fiscally solvent or to keep that same revenue, the city would have to increase revenues other places. And the most likely place that would come from would be property tax increases. And as you can see there, the estimated property tax revenue for FY23 is just over $19 million, and that includes your change to the certified tax rate that you're going to be debating over the next month and a half. So you can see what kind of an impact that would have if we took that transfer out from the enterprise funds and tack that on to property tax revenue. And one of the other policy points to consider is that when we do this transfer, if we were to take it out and not do it with the enterprise funds and do it just with property tax, there are a lot of properties in the city that don't actually pay property tax. So it wouldn't necessarily be a one-to-one. What you're not paying in your utility bill, you would pay on your property tax. It would actually favor those who don't pay property tax. But because not everybody pays a property tax, but everybody pays a water bill. This is a way to spread that revenue out a little bit to some of those folks who would, of course, get city resources like fire, police response, who aren't paying into the property tax portion of the revenue. So, and as I mentioned, if these were independent, like Dominion or Rocky Mountain Power, we would in fact receive that revenue from a franchise tax and a property tax. So the public hearing, as I mentioned, this is kind of a unique agenda item. You all are required to hold a public hearing, have this presentation. We're required to send out the notice, but there's no specific action that you take on these transfers. These transfers are incorporated into the budget, and it's the approval or denial of the budget that would approve these transfers. So you'll have the public hearing tonight, take your comments, and you will incorporate those into your consideration of the final budget. And we will send a follow-up notice once the budget is adopted. It's similar to the first notice that goes out. However, it just states that the final budget was adopted, and this is the amount that was authorized for transfer. So with that, I'm going to tag team this with Lisa, and she's going to talk about the actual accounting data, which is an element that is required under state law.
Thank you, Glenn. He always does such a good job explaining that. So quickly, just to review, the requirement is to show the percent of the utility budget that the transfer consists of. So as a reminder, the transfer is based on the revenue, the charges for services revenue in each fund. It's a total of 12%, 6% to support as a substitute for franchise tax, and 6% as a substitute for property tax. So in the water fund, the just under $2.9 million is approximately 9.72% of the water budget. In the sanitary sewer fund, the 1.6 is approximately, well, it is 11.16% of the sanitary sewer fund. And these budgets that we're using, the expenditure budget, are based on any changes that are included in Schedule A and Schedule A1. So in theory, the budget that you will adopt August 2nd. I wanted to make that clear as well, because we did make some changes to the sanitary and the storm sewer fund budgets. The storm sewer fund, the $685,000 is 11.98. My eyes are bad. 98% of the budget, and in the refuse fund, the total $800,000 is 11.86% of the budget. I also just wanted to just share some information with you in thinking about what Glenn had mentioned, that if we do away with these transfers, and I think the city has made a wise choice in selecting a specific percent of revenue. There are some cities, this is a common practice. All cities now are required to do this noticing. Some cities balance their budget this way. Ogden City does not. We set a percent of the revenue that we're going to take each year, and that factors into how we budget. If we were to do away with the total $6 million in transfers from the utility funds, we would need to do a property tax rate increase of 37.6% to get the same amount of revenue. So every $100 I pay in utility bills, $12 goes towards this transfer. And as Glenn mentioned, this also includes nonprofits who do not pay property tax or sales tax, honestly. And then I do have some numbers that we could play with maybe in a work session where we could talk about the cost of certain things. When you look at just employees and the number of firefighters and police officers in Ogden City, we have approximately 448 employees who are paid out of the general fund. 242 of those are either in the police department or the fire department. So the majority of support is going to police and fire. That's 54% of the employees in the general fund who are in public safety. Any additional questions? Thank you.
Okay, although there's no action on this, we will receive public input. Seeing no movement in the chambers, we'll go ahead and take public input from those online, and we have Angel Castillo. Welcome, Angel.
Thank you. Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I would just like to lift up that Glenn Symes did an amazing job of explaining something that's kind of clunky and difficult to understand. And I completely support Lisa Stout's fixed percentage as a necessity. And I think that I would love to see Brandon Garside put together a video that explains this, because he does such a good job with your page and explaining difficult concepts and enterprise funds and what they are, and the transfer is a little complex, but both Glenn and Lisa did an amazing job. So I think it would be good for your constituents to have continued education on the big and wonky, clunky stuff that y'all do as a council. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hands raised? Okay. Yep.
We don't need a motion?
Motion to close.
Oh.
Motion to close.
Close the public hearing.
Is it a public hearing? It is a public hearing. I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to close the public hearing on this item by Councilmember Ritchie and a second by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That, or any opposed? That passes. Thank you. Next up, we have the fiscal year 2022-2023 arts grants. And tonight we have Lori Buckley, the project arts coordinator here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here this
Yeah.
evening, and hope you're enjoying your nice background music. We'd be happy to provide it every Tuesday. We are here tonight to go over the fiscal year 23 recommended arts grants. Since he pops up the presentation, it's okay. Don't worry, it's all right. Let's do a little bit of dancing.
I had my light on my camera on my phone going a minute ago.
That's right.
Yeah.
Invite you all out. We'll get you out of here and come over and hang out. Lose some of your hearing.
Mm-hmm.
That's all right. Well, while he's loading that up, I would just like to mention the grant amount increased this year from $100,000 to $150,000, and the Arts Advisory Committee is very appreciative of that increase, as are, I'm sure, all the local creatives and business members. In the past 5 years, I averaged it out, and we've had at 200,000 or over, well over that amount in asks, so this will be very helpful in being able to more closely fully fund people's projects and programming. So that is a really nice thing that's coming forward this year. It's all right. I probably could wing it without it, but it's nice to look at pictures. Right there. There you go. Okay. Okay. So like I said, for fiscal year 2023, $150,000 has been allocated. Your role in this process is to make the determination that the value of the projects and the programming that are pushed forward with these grants is equal to or exceeds the monetary value that we're putting into this grant program. This year, 24 grant applications were received. They were reviewed by the Arts Grants Review Subcommittee first, and then the full Arts Advisory Committee reviews them, and then they're recommending that 21 of those 24 grants are to receive funding this year. 6 of the grants are for general support grants. That totals $66,500, and then 15 project support grants are coming forward, and the amount of $73,480. That will actually total $139,989 for this year, fiscal year 23. These are our general support grant applicants. We have our more stronger, a general support grant goes to organizations that are arts-based in their nonprofit, and they're an arts-based in their mission. So Chamber Orchestra Ogden's, their season of concerts, Good Company Theater, their season of performances, Imagine Ballet for their season of performance, the Nutcracker, is it Bourneville? Bourneville, they bring to Ogden City every June. Ogden Contemporary Arts, their programming that they do that's free to the public to go and interact with the large art installations and artists they bring there. O-Foam, as we all know, the Ogden Music Festival, and Snow Foam. And then Onstage Ogden, who brings groups like Ballet West and, Portland Cello Group and all these things to Ogden. So they are more long-term places, but it's just general support for the programming that they do. Project support is money towards specific projects. It can go to a nonprofit, it can go to a for-profit business, and an individual artist. So a lot of these projects you'll recognize. Banyan Collective Band Sessions, that's a staple project that you see at the Monarch for First Friday Art Stroll. It's that tan band, and they have local musicians play out of that. We would like to fund the arts programming that the Boys and Girls Club provide for the youth that use that program. Craft Lake City will hold a holiday festival at the Monarch, and that actually gives a location for 157 creative vendors. So our local artists here will be able to be vendors at that and sell their wares, which helps support our local creatives. Eccles Art Center, as you all know, has an amazing program and has for years and years. Give Me a Chance is funding arts programming for our clients at the Lantern House Homeless Shelter. Of course, the Lupec Hispanic Festival. Next Ensemble is a performing group that does concerts. It's a series of concerts. We have Nurture the Creative Mind, who's asking for money to support the Day of the Dead celebration for the our Hispanic residents. That happens November 1st, I believe. Ogden School Foundation is an amazing program. They have over 500 students participate in this every year. They submit artwork that they have done. They're actually allowing for performing arts this year, which is awesome. So students can enter dance pieces or singing pieces, and they do a juried show and give out monetary prizes. So this is really fun for our school students. Salty Productions is producing a magazine that supports and talks about the arts culture here in the city and our local residents, and then also they focus a little bit on the adventure side of Ogden, so it's arts and adventure. Samarpan Arts Center is a new one this year. They're doing a concert, or I guess a performance at the Eccles, Perry's Egyptian Theater, and it is a combination of a traditional dance style from southern Spain and traditional dance from India. So that should be really interesting to get a little bit of more culture here in Ogden. Weber Book Links will bring authors to Ogden for readings. This will happen a couple months in a row, and so they're free to the public to attend. A lot of them will be at the library. Weber State University Strings Project offers lessons for violins, cello, stringed instruments up at Weber State from 3rd grade up through junior high. And Youth Impact, of course, is their arts programming, which is a lot of different things: welding and drawing, fashion, all kinds of things that they can help the students that participate with their programming expand their horizons. So just to recap, we've got total for general support is 66.5, total for projects 73,480. That gives us 139,980 this year. With a allocation of 150,000, we would like to carry over to fiscal year 24 the additional $10,020. Just so you know, if you had questions, the grants are reviewed with a rigorous scoring process. We look at their artistic mission or the programs that are offering. We looked at how many creatives or how many community members that they are serving. Do the applicants, this is a question on the grant application, how are they looking at serving underserved populations? Do they consider diversity, equity, and inclusion in their programming? We also look to see that the applicant have a strong ability to implement the project. We want to see that they have a good idea and a strong plan to market their programming or event, and that they have a solid budget. So, and also most importantly, we always make sure that any of these grants align with the goals and objectives of the Arts Master Plan. So the action needed today is just for you to consider adopting proposed resolution 2022-12, and that's it. And do you have any questions? Oh, and normally I stand here in front of many of the grantees, but we've asked them in an effort to keep you guys on schedule today to send emails with their gratitude. So
Thank you, Lori.
except for LA Theaters.
Okay, we can now accept public input on this item. Okay, we'll go ahead and start then with our citizens joining us online. So looks like we have Angel Castillo. Welcome, Angel.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. Super grateful for the arts program that we have. It's a real necessity, and especially with our local nonprofits that are bringing in live performance art, it's a little bit different than actual hard things like paintings and sculptures. So I appreciate the support across the board, and I'd like to ask you to do more. I understand that you just upped it, and I'm asking you to do more by adding a percentage for art for new projects. I understand that we went ahead and we did this so that there isn't an up and down in income, and so that the arts program director can plan on a certain amount of money every year, and that's wonderful. But we are really developing very quickly with larger projects, and I think you should do both, because then we could really turn up what we're doing creatively in the city. And when there are years that the percentage for art doesn't provide anything, that's fine, because we still have committed to the other level. But just think of what we could do if we operated with a percentage for art program. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Heath Sato. Welcome, Heath.
Hey, thanks. I just wanted to basically say what Angel said. I fully support the program, and I'm glad it's been raised up, and I think we can do even more. And everything else Angel said way better than I ever could. So thanks.
Thank you.
From fairies, snowflakes, and flowers to frogs, princesses, and dragons.
Imagine Ballet Theater's creativity has been able to expand from tutus and tiaras to lycra and electric eyes.
Thanks to the generosity of Ogden City Arts.
This money helps us reach school-aged children who are
invited to the theater to learn about ballet, choreography, and putting on a production.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
May I just make a quick comment for those?
Yes.
I really appreciate those performers. They've been out in the hall for about 2 hours waiting to make that comment, so we really appreciate you.
And apparently can't sit down.
Yeah.
They can't.
Okay. I don't think there's any more coming in. So
Motion to close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Ritchie and a second by Councilmember Chaburka to close the public hearing on the fiscal year 2022-2023 arts grants. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes. And then I would accept a motion.
Chair or acting chair, I'd like to propose that we adopt resolution 2022-12 for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023 arts grants.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Chaburka to adopt proposed resolution 2022-12 and a second by Councilmember Ritchie. This is a roll call vote.
Acting Chair Blair,
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Aye.
Councilmember White,
Aye.
Chair Nadolski,
Aye.
That passes. Thank you. Let me make sure I'm where I'm supposed to be. Next up, we have the fiscal year 20 through 2027 capital improvement plan, and we have with us again Glenn Symes.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned in the work session when we went over this the first part of May, I apologize to the council members who have heard this presentation so many times you could probably give the presentation for me. So to the new folks, hopefully you can get something out of it. To the old folks who've been here for a while,
Thank you.
This is kind of like the deja vu all over again, right? So on your agenda is the capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2023 to 2027. Just by way of background, the capital improvement plan and adequate funding for it is part of your budget goals. And for those unfamiliar, a capital improvement project is anything over $50,000 that does include design and construction. Anything that adds to the physical plant, it can be for rehabilitation and reconstruction, and it can be for acquisition and long-term lease of land, and some feasibility studies that might lead to a capital improvement project. Some of the major funding sources for the capital improvement projects are, of course, the general fund, which includes the BDO lease revenue, federal and state grants, gas taxes, and quarter-cent sales tax, which are the B&C road funds and the active transportation funds, enterprise funds, bonds, and then, of course, ramp grants and other grants of that nature. Some of the ordinance changes that happened just about a year and a half ago have had a bit of an impact on the scheduling and the review of the CIP over the last couple of years. So I just wanted to review those. It is different than it was in years past. One of the biggest changes was really the timing of it. So it used to be that the CIP was submitted to the Planning Commission and then the council really toward the end of the calendar year, and then came to the council in the first part of the calendar year. It was reviewed, adopted, and then that was used to inform the budget that came to the council in the first part of May. We've since changed that, so it goes to the Planning Commission the 1st of March, comes to the council the middle of April, and then is reviewed with the budget side by side. Some of the other changes include increasing the amount from $30,000 to $50,000. That's just because of inflation, because projects cost more than they used to. $30,000 was a bit of a lower standard. It breaks the projects into three types, one-time, perpetual, and then the ramp projects. It clarifies the Planning Commission's role and allows some projects to actually forego the Planning Commission review if they're budgetary in nature. And then it removes the critical project contingency funding as a project. It used to be a project number. The money's still there, it just doesn't come under a project number any longer. So as I mentioned, the CIP and the budget are now reviewed together, and the intent was really to allow a better alignment for what's planned in the first year of the CIP with what's actually proposed in the budget. The CIP is still a 5-year document, so it is still a long-term planning document. But the projects that are proposed for the first year in the CIP are reviewed with the department budgets as you go through the budget review. And then as we are here tonight, the intent is to adopt the CIP with the budget. And normally you would be adopting the final budget tonight. However, you've chosen to go through the truth and taxation process, which pushes the final budget adoption back a little ways. So here's a schedule of your review over the last few weeks with each of the departments and the dates and the work sessions where you reviewed the projects. And then, as I mentioned, it does go through the Planning Commission. So the Planning Commission did have a chance to take a look at this the first part of April, and they forwarded a recommendation of 5-0 with a couple of recommendations. So one of the major roles of the Planning Commission is to make sure that the CIP and all of the projects are consistent with the general plan of the city. And so here are a couple of things that they're recommending. The Makerspace project, the CD 130, is proposed to go into the Union Station campus. However, that particular use is not actually allowed in the CBD zoning ordinance, so they are recommending that be updated or consider alternative locations. The second one is the Ogden River Bridge, EN 110. That would be part of the Gibson Grove project, and they're recommending if that go forward, that be added to the city's transportation plan. So when we dive into the CIP itself, the summary is 58 projects, 17 of which are new. 22 of the projects have what we consider a significant amendment, so greater than 20% change. It's important to note on that, not all of those changed because of project scope. Some of those had partial funding this current year, so that reduced the amount. So not all of those are substantial changes. Some of those are just funded over multiple years, so they had that change. But the total funding proposed in all of the projects for all of the years is just under $400 million. As you see there on the bottom with the 3 new categories, just under half are perpetual projects, just over half the one-time, and then the 4 projects are the ramp projects. So I won't go through every one of these, but you can see the funding that's proposed for the general fund departments. There's a total of about $69 million proposed in the CIP for first-year funding with general fund funds, and 171 total over the 5-year scope of the plan. And then when we look at the same thing for the enterprise funds, you see about $95 million is proposed for the first year of funding in the CIP plan. So this is separate and apart from the actual budget that you're considering. This is what's in the plan. And 228.6 proposed for all the projects in the enterprise funds. And that gets us to the 164.3 for the first year, million for the first year, and 399.7, just under 400 million for the total projects. When we do a comparison with what you're considering with the budget, you see there's a pretty big difference between what's in the first year funding proposed in the CIP and what's actually included in the budget. So 164.3 in the CIP, only about $14 million in the budget. Now, what's in the first year of the CIP usually is a little bit more than what's in the actual budget. That's pretty common, but this kind of a difference is unusual. But you see those 3 projects on the bottom. That's really the reason why there's such a big difference. Those 3 projects make up about $137 million. And all 3 of those projects are proposed to be funded with either grant funds or bond funds or donations or other things. And by practice, the city doesn't recognize those funds until we actually receive them. So over the course of the fiscal year, as that funding comes in, that number would change. That 13.4 would obviously go up as we recognize those funds in the budget for those projects. So with that, your next step is to hold the public hearing and then consider adoption of the CIP. Any questions I can answer? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Okay, the next step was to hold a public hearing, which we're doing, so we'll accept public input on this. Okay. Seeing no movement in the chambers, and I don't see any hands raised online, so I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember White and a second by Councilmember Chaburka to close the public hearing on the the 2023 through 2027 capital improvement plan. Sorry.
It's a long time ago. I propose we adopt ordinance 2022-23 adopting the 2023 to 2027 capital improvement plan.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember White to adopt proposed ordinance 2022-23. And a second by Councilmember Ritchie. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Ritchie.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Acting Chair Blair.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye.
That passes. Thank you. Okay, we had the fiscal year 2022-23 budget public hearing scheduled here. The council will consider the salary schedules with the final budget on August 2nd. The public hearings will be rescheduled also. So next up is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding concerns or ideas on any topic. Just make note that we are also accepting public comment on any RDA items as there will be no public comment in the RDA meeting. Welcome. Yes.
Hello, Kerry Wayne, Mary Slaterville. I was going to talk to the mayor, but I'll talk to Mark instead. Over the last 7 days, we've had 4 wind events. When I left here Tuesday, after being assured by the mayor that Boyer was handling the dust problem over there, I was met with a wall of fugitive dust coming across the street. I sent him a picture. I said, we really need to get this handled. Again, on Thursday and Friday, we were blown clear out. It was just horrible, as it was for most of the valley, but most of ours was coming from across the street. Again, Saturday I went to mow my lawn. I have a riding mower. I went out there. There was so much dust being drug up from the lawn that I ended up going back in the house with a nosebleed. That has never happened to me before. Again, I sent a note. One of the neighbors contacted me, says, what can we do? This is insane, the dust that we're getting. Again, I sent a note, and what I want to know is, the mayor said that even though he never responds, he says, I refer that to the right department. So I'd like to ask, what department is handling these fugitive dust complaints? It's an ordinance violation. We'd like something done. Boyer, the water truck, there was no water truck. Again, they're not doing anything. They've got equipment over there churning up dust all day long, and it's just unbearable. Like I said, can you answer that?
When you finish your comments, we'll answer the questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that's what we need. We need, like I said, if there's ordinance violations going on BDO, we need them to be followed up on. If it's noise, if it's lighting, if it's dust, we'd like to see it followed up on, because again, it's your rules, it's your property, and what we're asking for is for you to manage that property. I don't believe you can push it off to Boyer because you're the owner of record, and you wouldn't tolerate it from anybody here in Ogden. So if you could help us out, greatly appreciate it. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
I'm Wilson Tolman. I live here in Ogden near the Ogden River. Last city council meeting, our Mayor Caldwell, asked us to be kind in our comments and in our discussions and our actions. I would like to ask him to be kind to the people of our community, and that he hire a driver and that he pay for that driver out of his own pocket. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other movement in the chambers, I believe we have a hand raised online. Welcome, Angel Castillo. Welcome. The time is yours.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. How about those baby dragons? I mean, how beautiful and fantastic was that? And again, it's another reason why we should double down on our art program, because performing arts are things that don't usually get the kind of support for as, physical object art. But it was wonderful and it was adorable. I also neglected to thank you during the section for passing the WaterWise revisions, the Rip the Strip program. And while I know all of you at one point or time or another have voiced support for such a program, and I very much appreciate that, I'd like to lift up Angela Chaburka's relentless support and questioning to make sure that it kept moving and kept happening, because a lot of times some things just sort of die out. So I very much appreciate that commitment, and I'd like to also encourage you to decide how you're going to continue to supplement that and where that's going to come from to keep us moving towards reducing water. Because if it's anything like the state replace your fireplace with a gas fireplace, it's going to sell out very, very quickly. And that's a good place to be, but I think we should try to be proactive as opposed to reactive. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Heath Sato. Welcome, Heath. Time is yours.
Hi, Heath Soto, Ogden resident. I just wanted to sort of repeat and lift up what Carrie Wayne said. I've been pretty upset on his behalf about how he's been treated in chambers. If anyone has been out there and really seen what is happening to our neighbors, because of a public-private partnership we have in Ogden that we use to pay for a lot of stuff, it's horrible. It's really horrible. And to watch the mayor get mad and say he's offended, to like the night that there was a whole bunch of people, there was people crying, and he's done nothing about this. The buck should stop at his desk, and it never does. And all we ever hear is that he's offended. And there's a reason people are offending him, because of what he does and how he reacts and how he does nothing when we ask for action on things. So I commend Kerry Wayne actually for how level-headed he's been, considering what they're going through down there. And I don't think he needs to be chastised for his behavior last week. I thought that was just wrong, given what he's gone through. He's contained himself way better than I would just say. That's all. And have a good night.
Thank you, Heath. Okay, seeing no other movement. Comments from the administration?
Thanks,
I know.
Acting Chair, Chair Pro Tem. We appreciate that. Couple comments tonight. One, I apologize a little bit about the noise. I think they're taking a break. I don't think that's the end of the concert. Sometimes the only time they can get a group to come while they're going to other locations is sometimes on a Tuesday night. And so we've asked them to try and avoid Tuesdays when possible, although I didn't mind the music. But anyway, I just wanted to apologize for that noise. There was a comment made about us trying for state funds for Marshall White, ARPA funds. We did. We had in fact, I had a senator, a local senator, who reached out to me directly, went and talked to leadership, and leadership said, no, we will not. We don't want to go down that path. We won't go down that path. Don't even ask. So, I mean, it wasn't something that we didn't try. We did try. We just were, the door was shut pretty hard on us when it came to that. As far as Marriott Slaterville, Mr. Wayne, I apologize. I know the dust storms everywhere. The last few days around the weekend was bad everywhere. I was in Utah County, and I couldn't even see the road hardly. There was so much dust and smoke and et cetera. I was assured by BD Boyer that they were requiring the contractor to use water trucks to try and water it down. I don't think they were there all weekend. I apologize that is. I will reconnect with them tomorrow morning. And I'll also have our inspectors and code enforcement go out, and if we're not keeping our own ordinances, we'll take care of that. I would also say that there is a meeting a week from Wednesday, the 29th. I can't remember the time. I think it's 6 o'clock. And I know Mayor Caldwell will be at that meeting with the residents of Marriott Slaterville. And we're asking Boyer actually to join him. So there'll be time to talk at that meeting. Lastly, I really appreciate the recognition of Greg. I think out of a lot of the employees who retire, Greg's given his heart and soul to this city, and I really appreciate the acknowledgement of the amazing work he has done. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Comments from council members?
I can go first. I was just going to say that I really appreciated the council and administrative support for the Juneteenth events over the weekend. Really great turnout. I mean, the weather was pretty good for it too. Usually it's so hot that it's really hard to stay out there, but it was a really great event, and I really appreciate the support of that.
I just have a quick question, and I know there was a fire this morning. I just wonder if you could do a quick follow-up for us on that.
There was a fire on Jefferson between 22nd and 23rd. It pretty well took most of the roof, so it's kind of a total loss. Unfortunately, it was a house that was carved up into, I think, 3 apartments, and then there was an apartment out back. They don't know the cause yet, but they're investigating, and so it started in one place, and then the way those homes are built, it went up the walls, and pretty soon they had it on the 2nd floor. But no one was injured that we know of. But yeah, it's sad that it may be a total loss, which is unfortunate. Our guys did everything they could to try and save, and they did an amazing job. So that's what I know so far.
Thanks.
Nope. Okay. I would just like to add, I as much as I do look forward to Glenn's CIP presentation every year, and I also do really enjoy seeing our little dancers and those recipients from our arts grants come and thank us. And so tonight would have been very long, but I do appreciate them, the 2 girls being here tonight, and I do appreciate the many different members of our community that apply for and receive those arts and the many wonderful things they do in our community with that money. So I appreciate that. And the CIP presentation, of course. With that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Great. We have a motion by Councilmember Ritchie and a second by Councilmember White to adjourn the city council meeting. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes. You're missing quite a concert, Ben. Oh.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
But I'll take that. Take the beach over that.
Yeah. Yep. We okay to go? Okay. With Ben here, right? We can.
I'm not mad.
Really? Let's see here. Good evening and welcome to the Special Redevelopment Agency meeting for today, Tuesday, June 21st, 2022. Let the roll call reflect that all board members are present with the exception of Board Member Heyer, Vice Chair Lopez, and Chair Nadolski is joining us electronically. Do we want to entertain a motion to do 2 minutes on this? Are we okay with 3 minutes? Yeah, I think so too. Okay, I'm good. First up is a public hearing for the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget amendment for the WonderBlock. And I guessed right, we have Lisa here tonight to present.
Sorry, I thought we could mix it up. Justin does a great job. Appreciate him being here. The City Council recently adopted a budget opening to appropriate $2.5 million out of the general fund to transfer to the redevelopment agency. The budget appropriation we're asking you to consider tonight is to recognize that $2.5 million from the city into the redevelopment agency, specifically the continental area. Those funds will be used for pre-development work at the WonderBlock site. Let me just remind you, these funds, the city received a grant from the Governor's Office of Economic Development in the amount of $2.5 million as a way to appropriate funds to the WonderBlock area. The city is recognizing $9.5 million in the lost revenue allocation through the ARPA funds into the Ogden City General Fund. This request essentially will use up $2.5 million of that additional $9.5 million in funds that are being put into the Ogden City General Fund. So far, the city has made, the redevelopment agency has made a large investment in this area using debt transfers from the city and increment to purchase property, to repay debt, and also to demo and prep the site for work over at the WonderBlock. Additionally, we have spent, the redevelopment agency has spent just under $1.4 million in pre-development costs. In the land transfer development agreement, the RDA is authorized to spend up to $4.5 million for those pre-development work. The City Council has already appropriated the $2.5 million out of the City General Fund, and the action before the RDA Board tonight is to recognize the $2.5 million into the trackline area. Any questions? Continental, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay. This is a public hearing, so we will now accept public input on this item.
I'm acting chair, seeing no movement in the chamber and no hands raised. I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Board Member Chaburka and a second by Board Member Ritchie to close the public hearing on this item. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes, and with that, I would entertain a motion.
I would propose that we adopt Resolution 2022-5 for the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget amendment for the WonderBlock.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Board Member Ritchie and a second by Board Member White to adopt proposed Resolution 2022-5. This is a roll call vote. Aye.
Acting Chair Blair.
Aye.
Board Member Chaburka.
Aye.
Board Member Ritchie.
Aye.
Board Member White.
Aye.
Chair Nadolski.
Aye.
That passes. Thank you. Comments from the Executive Director or Administration?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. And comments from board members? Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
great. We have a motion by Board Member Ritchie to adjourn and a second by Board Member Chaburka. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes. Thank you all, and thanks, Ben. Have fun.
Thank you.